In 1590, an entire English colony, 118 men, women, and children, vanished without a trace from Roanoke Island. No bones. No graves. No distress signals. Just a single word carved into a tree, CROATOAN. For over 400 years, historians have asked, did they die? Did they escape? Or did something far stranger happen in the darkness of the New World? The story starts in 1587 when John White, the colony's governor, left Roanoke to return to England for supplies. He promised to return within 2 years. War with Spain delayed him. When White finally made it back in 1590, he found the settlement completely abandoned. Homes were still standing. Belongings were scattered. But the colonists were gone. What makes this disappearance psychologically fascinating is what it reveals about human response to abandonment and uncertainty. White had left his own daughter and granddaughter at Roanoke. Can you imagine the psychological weight of that discovery? The guilt. The desperation to know what happened. His inability to find answers likely haunted him for the rest of his life. The word CROATOAN carved into a tree became the central clue. It wasn't written as a distress signal, no cross or warning sign accompanied it. Historians believe this might indicate the colonists left deliberately, possibly moving south to seek refuge with the CROATOAN Indians. But why carve only one word? What happened to the others? Psychological research on group behavior under stress tells us something important. When people face extreme conditions, starvation, isolation, disease, they often fragment. Some die. Some scatter. Some integrate with other groups. The Roanoke colonists would have faced brutal Virginia winters, depleted food stores, and constant fear of conflict with indigenous peoples. These pressures reshape how groups think and act. One leading theory suggests the colonists split into smaller groups. Some may have gone to CROATOAN Island. Others might have migrated inland to what is now North Carolina. Genetic and linguistic evidence from Native American tribes in the region has occasionally suggested European ancestry, fueling speculation that the colonists integrated with indigenous populations and their descendants. But there's a darker possibility. Archaeological evidence suggests the colony faced severe malnutrition. Tooth wear patterns and bone analysis reveal chronic stress and disease. Some scholars argue that without Governor White's supplies, the colony simply couldn't sustain itself. Perhaps they didn't scatter, perhaps they slowly died, their bodies returning to the earth with no record left behind. The psychology of historical interpretation matters here. We want neat answers. We want resolution. But Roanoke refuses to give it to us. Instead, we project our hopes and fears onto the mystery. Romantic souls imagine peaceful integration. Darker minds imagine tragedy and death. The truth is, we don't know. And that uncertainty is profoundly uncomfortable. What fascinates psychologists is how we relate to unsolved mysteries. They activate our pattern recognition instincts. We're wired to solve problems, to find answers. When we can't, we feel cognitive dissonance, genuine discomfort. This is why Roanoke captivates us centuries later. It's not just history. It's a challenge to our fundamental need for closure. Recent research has examined the broader context of early colonial failures. Roanoke wasn't alone. Jamestown nearly collapsed. Many settlements vanished. What this tells us is that European colonization of North America was far more fragile and chaotic than history books suggested. Survival depended on luck, local knowledge, and indigenous cooperation, not inevitability. The lost colony of Roanoke endures in our culture because it embodies profound questions. How do communities survive? How do we respond to abandonment? What happens when the world forgets us? These aren't just historical questions. They're deeply human ones. And they're why, 400 years later, we're still asking what happened on that island. The truth about Roanoke might never be fully known. But that's not a failure of history, it's a feature. It reminds us that the past is incomplete. That human stories are rarely clean. And that sometimes the most powerful history isn't what we know for certain, but what we're still brave enough to ask about.